A Raptors insider just dropped a big report where he does a deep dive into how the close of the season has really played out from a coaching and front office perspective, and how some of the guys that are jockeying for position, jockeying for their futures on this Toronto Raptors squad, have been faring in their likelihood of coming back to the team next season. So we're going to break all of that down and see whether or not we agree with some of the analysis and some of the perspectives taken by the front office and other Raptors insiders. So lots of stuff to sink our teeth into in this video. Obviously, it's been a tough close to this year. If you're a Toronto Raptors fan, lots of losses, but it's kind of how it goes. And we're maximizing that chance of keeping that draft pick. So there's positives there. This team needed a rebuild. And then with all the injuries and players being out, we can't really take too many of these losses seriously. And this seems to be the perspective that continues to come out from coaching staff and the front office. We broke down it a little bit in yesterday's video as well, but basically this is now coming from Darko, just basically saying that it's maybe disappointing regarding to all the losses, the tough games, against the New York Knicks, a 40-plus point deficit, but it's not easy for this group of guys to hold their ground on every single night. So basically referring to the fact that, as the article sort of goes on to say, and therein lies the rub. The reason that there's a tamer reaction, because Scottie's been out, Jakob Poeltl's out for the season, and then obviously RJ Barrett's been out for a while. Manuel Quickley's personal issues, personal reasons, has been away from the team. Jonte Porter's currently suspended. There's a long list of guys. There's a long list of impact players on this team that are out of the lineup here now at this point. And this happens when you take the most important players away from a team of this quality. Maybe there's some loss of belief, but that's not largely about effort. So again, this is something we've been kind of saying consistently on these videos, which aligns with what Darko is saying in these sort of posts, right? Like, hey, this team is tough right now. We're a team in transition as is, and then our entire basically starting lineup is out of action, is out of being able to be out there on the court. So that's just kind of the reality that comes with it. But to close off the season, the thing that the front office, the fans, everyone is really looking for is which of these players that, again, would be more so rotational, if not deep bench pieces, potentially on this Raptors group in the future, which of these guys could be earning a potential roster spot for next year? Who has played well enough to really cement themselves into the lineup, cement themselves a roster position for next season? Well, basically, we have some perspective on that. However, there is nothing to judge here save the iffy job the Raptors have done filling out their roster the past several years. You can't judge Rajakovic and his staff. You can't judge offensive efficiency of the players taking the most shots, as they've been putting in outsized roles that are destined to not be able to fill. You can't judge defensive capabilities for 6'4" players routinely guarding guys who are taller and stronger than them. So this is something I'm in agreement with also. It all comes with a grain of salt. How these guys are playing, they're out of position, they're out of their roles. A guy like Abaji's been playing power forward when he's naturally a shooting guard, right? There are different things we can look at and we have to take into perspective regarding this roster, regarding this group here now at this point. But there are some players that really have been given opportunities that haven't been able to run with them just yet. So the shortage of unqualified positive developments is hard to stomach. For sure, Grady Dick's season has been on an upward trajectory, but that's probably the most important thing that can happen with this entire core missing. But while others like Javon Freeman-Liberty, Jordan Nwora, and since departed Jahmi'us Ramsey, and Gary Trent Jr. have had slivers of nice stretches, none has made enough of an ironclad case for sticking around well into the future. So, again, Jahmi'us Ramsey, Javon Freeman-Liberty, Jordan Nwora, we'll talk about those guys. But the name that's most interestingly lumped in there with those players has been the star boy Gary Trent Jr., who has been having some big games, popping off for 30 pieces here and then, but it hasn't been the most efficient shooting nights. It hasn't been, on another tier level that you might expect Gary Trent Jr. to step up to. Since he's been handed the keys, he is that de facto number one option right now with Scottie, Jakob, RJ, Quickley, all out of that lineup. So, Grady Dick, he's been better, hit a bit of a rookie wall a little bit, but still is playing pretty solid. But Gary Trent Jr., his efficiency has kind of fallen off a cliff as he's had some bigger scoring games and just really hasn't taken that sort of jump in the second half of the season that could have really cemented himself as a core piece for the futures. Again, his age his, previous scoring ability. He's only 25 years old here now at this point. He fits the Toronto Raptors timeline. 6'5", can space the floor, right? He's taken that significant drop off, that significant decrease in terms of scoring from last season, even with the last quarter of this year, him being given the reins, given all the shots, given all the opportunities, and his shooting efficiency, those specific numbers you might look for a spot-up shooter that could be really effective around the Scotty Barnes, just haven't been at the level we'd hope to expect. I mean, his three-point shooting from the corners is not elite. Again, 36% is solid, but from a three-point shooter, it is not at that level you'd sort of expect for a guy that's making a bunch of kickouts, and he's taking a little bit easier shots. Like 90% of his threes this season are assist upon. He's creating less, and that's a factor of the Raptors' sort of new system, new offense, and we know Gary Trent Jr. is not going to be a playmaker in the sense that he's going to be dropping off crazy dimes every single possession, every single play to get people open, but you'd think his efficiency, you'd think his three-point numbers, and he is shooting a very solid sort of percentage from behind the three-point arc just in general, right? He's shooting 40% from behind the three-point line, which has dipped a little bit. It's been up and down over the course of this year, but you'd think especially the corner three numbers, and with his percentage of shots being assisted upon, would increase those numbers significantly for an elite sort of knockdown three-point shooter, but they just haven't really, he hasn't really separated himself as one of those guys that's just a complete can't miss, keep this guy on this roster for the future, right? With everything that's sort of going on, the rest of the sort of holes in his game. Now, I still want Gary Trent Jr. on this roster. I still want him back on this team, but at a reasonable price, at a reasonable bargain. I don't want to be giving him $20+ million per year here now at this point. Again, Masai Ujiri's talked about flexibility. That would be eating up a ton of flexibility for this Raptors group for a guy that just, even with handed on a silver platter to close off this season, the opportunity to put up some lucrative numbers, just hasn't really been able to do it. And then looking at other guys that were sort of mentioned, Jawan Freeman Liberty, 6 points, shooting 14% from behind the three-point line, 13 games, getting 16 minutes per night. He's getting some opportunities, just hasn't really been able to take that step, take that leap. Things could change to close off this year, but nothing too crazy from him. And then Jordan Nwora as well, in terms of his stats, and his stats aren't popping up on the screen, but he's averaging roughly 7 points per game. He's had some big scoring nights, but there's still questions about him on the defensive end for this group. I mean, there's been no star players. There's been no, heck, even like a Jeff Doughton that has impressed people enough to say, hey, he should be back on the roster. And even Jeff Doughton didn't get the roster callback. So it is what it is. Gary Trent Jr.'s, I don't think it makes sense to lump him in there. And, with Eric Koreen being a front office insider, maybe that's just what he's hearing from the front office guys. They're just not happy with Gary Trent Jr.'s performance and things like that. But I don't know. It's a tough sort of pill to swallow as Raptors fans, because we know we're losing, right? We know we're taking these games, not on purpose, but we just don't have the roster. We don't have the players to really get the W's. But you'd want to see some of these younger guys, do what Delano Banton's been doing for the Portland Trailblazers. Prove that he is a legit NBAer. Heck, even Precious Achiuwa, I feel like at this point would have been a nice guy to sort of see how they develop and stuff. But obviously you don't get RJ and Emmanuel quickly if that deal goes down. It is what it is, but let me know what you guys think about all these guys and how they're going to fit into the future of this team. I'm not super stressed about the losses. It sucks to see these games, rooting for this team, to at least look good and then lose by 40 against the New York Knicks. But we're looking to the offseason. We're praying for ping pong balls. But let me know what you guys think in the comment section down below. You guys are the best to make it as far. Subscribe to the channel if you guys haven't already. I'm signing out. Cheers.